Hello growers, I'm Dr. MJ Coco from CocoForCannabis.com. We publish articles, tutorials, and guides on the science and practice of growing cannabis. And I conduct independent grow light tests as part of our comprehensive grow light guide. This is an interesting test and review. I have the new Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro, possibly the best fixture on the market for 3x3 coverage. It's really well designed with superior build quality. It has an excellent spectrum, and notably, it devotes 12% of its power to far-red 730 nanometer light. In my PAR tests thus far, I have always used an Apogee SQ500 PAR sensor. It measures the traditionally defined PAR wavelengths from 400 to 700 nanometers. I consider it the best PAR sensor. However, it does not measure the far-red light, which is outside the PAR range. But groundbreaking new research from Bruce Bugbee, Zhen, Mark Van Eersel, and others is redefining PAR. They propose a new definition for extended PAR to include light from 400 to 750 nanometers. Following this research, Apogee just launched the new SQ610 extended PAR sensor. It measures the newly defined ePAR range. And I now have both sensors. So I'm going to do my standard PAR test with the Apogee SQ500 sensor, and for the first time, I'll also do an ePAR test with the new Apogee SQ610 ePAR sensor. We'll dive into the science of PAR and ePAR and consider whether we should count those far-red photons. We'll analyze how the Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro performs in both the PAR test and the new ePAR test. And we'll consider the significance of this new science for us as growers. Of course, I'm also doing a PAR test premiere giveaway. If you're watching during the live premiere, you have a chance to win this Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro. Guess the 3-digit winning number and put it in the chat. If you missed the premiere, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can be part of the next PAR test premiere giveaway. Photontek fixtures come in nice printed boxes. They also offer discreet shipping options. Let me open it up. We'll see what we got. All right, we have a power cord and hanging cables. The manual. Everything, including the manual, comes in a nice little bag. And this is the dimmer controller. Let me lift out the fixture. The Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro, together with the SQ 200 Watt Pro, comprise the new SQ series from Photontek. They are the first fixtures from Photontek that are designed for smaller coverage areas, 3x3 and 2x2. Photontek is the sister company of Lumitech EU. The SQ series are upgraded versions that are based on the design from the Lumitech ATS series. Like all Photontek equipment, the SQ 300 Watt Pro is sleek, solid, and well made. I get my hands on a lot of fixtures, and Photontek always feels like quality. I love the square design for smaller coverage areas. It should produce an excellent spread of light. Photontek uses top-rated diodes on the SQ series. The brand and models are trade secrets, but I reviewed the technical specs, and these diodes match the performance of the industry leaders. There are 576 full-spectrum diodes at 4000K, 24 red diodes at 660 nanometers, and 24 far-red diodes at 730 nanometers. The new SQ series fixtures feature an improved design, which allows more diodes closer to the corners. They also have the upgraded Photontek clear glue to protect the diodes without compromising the flux. We'll consider more details about the diodes once I turn them on. I'll flip the fixture over so we can see the other side. It's really a nice looking fixture. The high-efficiency Photontek driver is mounted on top. Photontek and Lumitech drivers are among the best on the market. It's not easily removable on this fixture, but with 95% efficiency, the driver won't put out a lot of heat. I'll measure the temperature after the PAR and ePAR tests. We're going to have fun playing with this cool little light. As you can see, there is no assembly required. It comes with cables to help hang it up, but I always prefer to use 4 ratchet pulleys, so I can make precise adjustments for the PAR test. I'll get them all clipped in. It's a small fixture, so it's light and easy to raise up. Now I just have to connect the controller and the power. On this side of the SQ 300 Watt Pro, there are 2 ports. The controller goes into the signal in port. If you had multiple fixtures, you can daisy chain them using the signal out port. On the other side, there is a port for the power input. The connectors are self-twisting. Just line them up and push them on. Okay, I'll turn on the power, and we have light. The square shape looks cool, and should create a really even PAR map. There are a total of 624 diodes. To accurately break down the number of diodes per watt, we have to consider the power proportion. 74% of the power, 229.4 watts, goes to the 576 full-spectrum diodes. That's 2.51 diodes per watt, or 0.4 watts per diode. 14% of the power, 43.2 watts, goes to the 24 red 660 nanometer diodes. That's 0.55 diodes per watt, or 1.8 watts per diode. The remaining 12% of the power, about 37.2 watts, goes to the 24 far red 730 nanometer diodes. That's 0.64 diodes per watt, or 1.55 watts per diode. Although the count for the red and far red diodes may seem low relative to their power proportion, they are top-end diodes that are rated for up to 3 watts. All of the diodes are powered well below their capacity. Before we run them through the PAR and ePAR tests, I have to let them all warm up and stabilize. Let's go check out the published stats. This is the product page for the SQ 300 Watt Pro on PhotontekLighting.com. We can see the list price is $429 in the US, but we have a 10% discount code. Use code COCOPTK, and the SQ 300 Watt Pro will cost only $386. I'll open the spec sheet. First, in the spectrum chart, you see a great distribution in the PAR range, and the spike at 730 nanometers. Over here, they list a ppf of 816 micromoles. I confirmed that this data is from an in-house sphere test, and that they measured the full spectral range from 400 to 750 nanometers. They list a power draw of 310 watts, which gives it an efficacy of about 2.7 micromoles per joule. Let's take these data and run them through the Coco for Cannabis Grow Light calculator. This is our tool to help growers analyze grow lights. It focuses on the important metrics and allows you to make better comparisons. In the calculator on the right, we load all of our tested fixtures. In the calculator on the left, you can enter your own data. The Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro has a listed power draw of 310 watts. With discount code COCOPTK on PhotontekLighting.com, the price is $386. Photontek publishes sphere test data, so I will select total ppf. They measured 816 micromoles. According to the calculator, that should translate to a usable ppf of 706 micromoles, which would give the SQ 300 Watt Pro an impressive photon efficiency of 2.28 micromoles per watt, and an excellent price of only 55 cents per micromole. We predict a benchmark harvest of almost 19 ounces, and it should cover 1 square meter. The Photontek sphere test included the far red light, so these estimates should correlate with our ePAR test. But I'm going to run our standard PAR test first. I'm testing it in our 3x3 test area, which is actually 90 by 90 centimeters. Using my Apogee SQ500 PAR sensor, I found the maximum ppfd of 1,000 micromoles per square meter at a hanging height of 44 centimeters, about 17.5 inches. In a PAR test, I measure the density of PAR photons in each square in the grid. The PAR range is largely the same range as visible light, but plants use light for photosynthesis rather than to see. So brightness doesn't matter. Photon density does. For example, red light is not very bright to us, but it is very efficient for photosynthesis. Most of the red light is measured in a PAR test, but the upper limit of PAR is 700 nanometers. So the far red 730 nanometer light is not being counted in this test. We're going to consider the PAR spectrum and whether we should count that 730 nanometer light. But first, let's check out this 400 to 700 nanometer standard PAR map. This is close to a perfect PAR map. The square shape of the Photontek SQ 300 Watt Pro helps to create an even spread of high-density light. Most of the canopy is in the maximum production zone, and the corners only drop down to about 600 micromoles per square meter. This is perfect density light. And it's impressive since 12% of the power is going to far red light that we aren't counting in this test. Let's run the numbers. The hanging height is 44 centimeters, about 17.5 inches. At that height, the maximum ppfd was 1,000 micromoles per square meter. The SQ300 Pro delivered an average ppfd of 765.6 micromoles per square meter, which equates to a usable ppf of 620.1 micromoles. I measured a power draw of 313 watts during the test, which would equate to a usable PAR photon efficiency of 1.98 micromoles per watt. But again, 12% of that power, about 37.5 watts, is going to far red light, which is not measured in the standard PAR test. If we only count the 275.5 watts that is going toward PAR, the usable PAR photon efficiency is 2.25 micromoles per watt, which is excellent for a fixture this size, and very close to what the calculator predicted. But subtracting the power for the far red diodes is not really the right way to evaluate the light output from the Photontek SQ 300 Pro. Let's think about light. Light is a spectrum, and as growers, we're primarily concerned with PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. Decades of research by Robert Emerson, Keith McCree, and many others led to the understanding that PAR was limited to the 400 to 700 nanometer wavelengths. Shorter wavelengths are ultraviolet, and longer wavelengths are infrared. Both UV and IR light are known to stimulate various reactions from plants. They are plant biologically active radiation, but they have been considered outside the range of wavelengths that power photosynthesis. For my PAR tests, I've always used an Apogee SQ500 sensor, which is specifically tuned to measure only the PAR photons from 400 to 700 nanometers. If we add the spectrum graph from the Photontek SQ300 Pro, we can see that the vast majority of the light that it puts out is within the PAR range, but there's a spike out beyond PAR in the far red. Many fixtures have diodes that are designed to produce far red light, usually 730 nanometer. Far red wavelengths are abundant in light from the sun and high-pressure sodium bulbs. It's long been known to affect plant morphology. It aids early growth, promotes stem elongation, and many growers believe it promotes cannabinoids and improves harvest quality. But since it is not considered photosynthetically active radiation, it is not measured in a traditional PAR test. This exclusion has been justified by the science, but the science is changing. Recent advances in LED and laser technology have enabled researchers to more carefully examine the synergistic role that far red light plays in combination with shorter wavelength light to excite photosystems 1 and 2 and contribute to overall quantum yield. Shuyang Zhen, Mark Van Eersel, and Bruce Bugbee have led pioneering research which shows that far red photons elicit photosynthetic activity equal to PAR photons when delivered at up to 30% of the total photon flux. This is revolutionary science. In June 2021, they published a summary argument in favor of including far red photons in the definition of photosynthetic photons. They proposed the label ePAR, extended photosynthetically active radiation, for the range of light from 400 to 750 nanometers. In light of this new research, Apogee launched their newest SQ610 ePAR sensor. The SQ610 is specifically designed to measure the newly defined ePAR range of 400 to 750 nanometers. It will measure all of the light produced by the Photontek SQ300 Pro, and according to the latest science, all of that light should count as photosynthetic light. I discussed the new sensor with Apogee, and they agreed to send me one for use in my testing. So I already ran the PAR test with the Apogee SQ500, and now I'll run an ePAR test with Apogee SQ610. The only real difference between these spectral response curves is the far red light, so we'll be able to compare the PAR and ePAR maps and see how much far red light reaches the canopy. Let me remove the Apogee SQ500 sensor, and I'll introduce the new Apogee SQ610 extended PAR sensor. I'm going to run the exact same test without changing the fixture position. Now that I'm counting the far red photons, the maximum ePPFD is up at 1,094 micromoles per square meter. You know, the new science supporting ePAR has interesting implications for growers and for grow lights. For example, should I raise this fixture because we now know the maximum ePPFD is over 1,000? I think not. The research that supports the 1,000 micromole per square meter limit only measured the PAR light from 400 to 700 nanometers, but they used sources of light that included far red. Until we get similar research that looks at the density limits of the extended PAR range, I'll continue to recommend minimum hanging heights and set up our official tests based on the maximum ppfd in the traditional PAR range. But I expect that the industry will respond to the new science. In the current testing standards by the Design Light Consortium, fixtures that generate far red light don't get credit for it. When evaluating fixture efficiency, the power that goes to the 730 nanometer light is measured, but the 730 nanometer light itself is not. As we saw, this makes a big difference in the efficiency rating, and it creates a disincentive for manufacturers to include far red light. Zhen, Van Eersel, and Bugbee make a convincing argument that the standard should be updated. Using this new Apogee SQ610 sensor, I am updating my testing standards, and I'll start giving credit to the far red. Let's check out this extended PAR map. I distinguish the ePAR maps with a red border around the numbers. I also state the spectral range at the top. Obviously, this is an amazing density map. Now that we're counting all of the photons, we have values above 1,000 micromoles per square meter, and the measured density is higher everywhere than it was in the standard PAR map. This is a great 3x3 PAR map with as much density as I would recommend, but including the far red light shows that the SQ300W Pro will power even more growth. Growers have long preferred lights with a good dose of far red. Now that we know all of these photons contribute to photosynthesis, who wouldn't want a map with this much photon density? Let's run the numbers. I kept the height at 44 centimeters, about 17.5 inches, and the maximum ePPFD was 1,094 micromoles per square meter. The average ePPFD is 841.4 micromoles per square meter, which equates to a usable ePPF of 681.5 micromoles. The power draw remained 313 watts, but in this test, we measured all of the light, so the usable ePAR photon efficiency is an impressive 2.18 micromoles per watt. If we take this data from the ePAR map and subtract the values from the PAR map, we are left with just the far red light. The far red light is distributed very well across the canopy. There is some sampling error for each individual measurement, but that should wash out over the 36 samples for an accurate average photon density of 75.8 micromoles per square meter, which equates to a usable photon flux of 61.4 micromoles. 12% of the fixture power, about 37.5 watts, goes to the far red diodes, which gives them a usable photon efficiency of 1.64 micromoles per watt. A lot of fixtures that advertise IR or far red only include a dusting, but the SQ300W Pro generates a good density of far red light. There's a bit more data to consider about this fixture. Everything is included on the test report page in the Coco for Cannabis Grow Light Guide. Here are the main data from the ePAR test with the Photontek SQ300W Pro. The ePAR test data should give the best estimates for coverage area and harvest potential. As I gather more ePAR data, I'll refine the underlying formulas for these estimates. Here you can find our discount codes and shopping links. For the best deals, shop photontechlighting.com and use discount code COCOPTK for 10% off. You can get the Photontek SQ300W Pro for $386, which is only 57 cents per micromole. Since we spent so much time considering 730 nanometer light in this review, 730 is the winning number in the PAR Test Premiere giveaway. If you're watching during the YouTube premiere and you guessed the closest number, congrats, you just won a cutting-edge grow light. And if you missed the premiere, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can be part of the next PAR Test Premiere giveaway. Below the test data and the grow space calculator, you'll find my written review. I've been impressed with all of the Photontek fixtures I've tested, and the SQ300W Pro is no exception. The build quality is excellent, the components and design are state-of-the-art, and the performance is industry-leading. After running it for several hours, I measured its temperature. The LED bars were hottest on the inner ring, but only got up to 50.4 degrees Celsius, 122.7 Fahrenheit. The outer rings had somewhat cooler temperatures, in the mid and high 40s Celsius. The Photontek driver is mounted in the casing on top of the bars. The hottest temperature I measured on it was only 50.6 degrees Celsius. I also tested the dimmer on the Photontek SQ 300-watt Pro with both the PAR and ePAR sensors. The dimmer that comes with Photontek fixtures has 4 preset dimming positions. They also make a cool digital controller. As you can see, the dimmer is accurate at each dimmer position. Both the PAR and ePAR wavelengths dim in unison. That was a lot of data and a deep analysis, so let me cut to the chase. The Photontek SQ 300-watt Pro is an exciting fixture. The distribution created by the square design is exceptional and will lead to excellent photosynthetic efficiency in a 3x3 space. The significant investment in far-red light should be counted as an asset rather than held as a liability against efficiency. When we do that, it's clear that the Photontek SQ 300-watt Pro is a leader in terms of photon efficiency among small form factor fixtures on the market. I do not believe that there is a better grow light designed for 3x3 coverage. At Coco for Cannabis, we always put growers' interests first. Our goal is to provide impartial, science-based testing and reviews for home growers. You support our work when you use our discount codes to purchase grow lights. I'd like to thank Martine Faro at Photontek for sending me the SQ 300-watt Pro to test, and Chris Madsen at Apogee Instruments for sending me the new SQ 610 ePAR sensor to test it with. And thank you for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next PAR Test Premier giveaway. Learn all about our grow light giveaways on the Deals and Discounts page at cocoforcannabis.com. While you're there, you can read our articles, chat with our community in the chat room, join our next Grow Challenge, and try your hand at the Grow Light Calculator. Grow your own, but don't grow alone. Let's grow together. I'm Dr. MJ Coco, sending all of you grower love.